Hello and welcome to the Intersection with me and Rachel Harris. How you doing, Rachel? Are you all right?
Yeah,
Up
still
there
here,
above me?
plodding
Hey.
along.
So it's good to be back. I've had couple of weeks off, and there's been a lot going on in the
Yeah.
area of intersectionality, and where it's all
Oh,
come together:
yeah,
trans rights, feminism,
yeah,
feminat. What do you call them? The
yeah,
turfs, and also racial discrimination has been at the Olympics with Imane Khelif, who
yeah,
was misgendered publicly by many big public figures
yeah,
like J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk, both billionaires,
yeah,
decided to say that she wasn't a woman.
yeah,
And she comes from Algeria, which is a country where it is very illegal to be trans. It's very illegal to get gender affirming surgery or anything like
yeah.
that. It's also illegal to be gay. And so they basically put her life in danger. But what I want to talk about first is Alan Jackson's asking what's a TERF. So if you want to just explain that, and then we can explain why someone who is a TERF isn't a
Yeah.
feminist.
Yeah, so in the early days of when people started to push against trans people, it's the TERF term stands for trans exclusionary radical feminist. So this is the feminist movement um who are, are fighting for women's rights, but not trans women's rights. They exclude trans women in that. So not really feminists, because most feminists, most good feminists, and do include trans women because they understand that we are sort of right at the bottom of the pile. And if we're not included, well, then things start to unfray,
Mm.
which is where we're going to be going in a minute, because obviously the ultimate end of pushing against trans rights, ultimately you're going to end up attacking non-trans women, which is where we are with this sports
Well,
story that we're going to cover.
exactly.
It was always going to be what I call inbuilt misogyny, because now we're at the point where we're looking at, trans women, going into loos and restrooms. What we're now seeing is lots of non-trans women getting judged for their femininity and how they look in bathrooms. So we're getting a lot of non-trans or cisgender women getting thrown out of bathrooms or because they don't look feminine enough.
We've
So
talked about this, haven't we?
again and again and
Transphobia
again.
leads to
Yeah.
misogynistic attacks on women who don't look conventionally
Yeah.
feminine. And as we find at the Olympics, this isn't the first time this has happened, when it's a black woman, you
Mm.
get the intersectionality of racism and misogyny and transphobia all coming together in
Yeah.
one horrific cluster F, with J.K. Rowling, the turf
Yeah.
queen, the woman who said back in 2019 that she loves her trans brothers and sisters and will march with them for their rights. And now she's
Mm.
descended to this. But
Yeah.
here's the thing, Rachel. She hasn't tweeted since, you know.
No, shocker.
It's 2 weeks
Uh,
now. She's not tweeted at all.
no, the whole thing about this is so shocking because this is all everybody talked. I mean, it really tainted the Paris Olympics for these two boxers. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
just
Lin Yu-ting of
that's right.
Taiwan
Yeah,
and also Imane Khelif,
yeah,
both of whom went on to win gold in their
yeah, yeah.
respective divisions.
So
Brilliant, like
they
fantastic. They won gold. What a
yeah,
massive fu to the
yeah,
haters. But you've still got these
yeah,
women who claim to be standing up for women, like Sharon Davis,
yeah.
the swimmer, who's
Mm.
never had a problem with Phelps being a mutant. But you know,
Yeah,
there's certain limits that they should have. And then there was a
yeah.
whole thing about this was all because the IBA, which was the boxing authority until 2019 that
Big
the
dodge.
IOC used to decide who got to represent each country for the Olympics, they were sacked off by the IOC back in 2019 because of corruption.
Yeah.
And there was this press conference. You see the press conference that they had, where they tried to explain why they had banned these two women athletes.
No, it was a bit. I heard that it was a bit of that their reasons are a bit foggy, and even the
Yes.
tests that they did. Yeah,
Well, 1 minute they were saying they were found to have XY chromosomes, and the next minute they were saying that they failed a testosterone test. But
yeah,
why is there a need for a testosterone test anyway? Like,
yeah.
I mean, here's a fun little biological fact for you. Black men often produce more testosterone when they reach about 18, 19 than white men do. Not all, not all.
Yeah.
Hashtag not all black people. Hashtag not all white people. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, they have a slight advantage when it comes to levels of testosterone, which
Yeah.
makes it why when you watch, say, a running race, black athletes tend to, not all black athletes, hashtag not all black athletes tend to do better than their white
Mm.
counterparts in those kind of races.
Mm.
I just, okay, you've got a natural advantage.
Yeah.
What can be done about it?
But
But
those two those tests, and the IBA did those tests when I think one of the fighters beat a Russian
yes,
fighter, didn't they?
yeah,
So it
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah. So it did feel a bit sniffy, something smelly in
And
Denmark, as usual.
also, given the relationship between China and Russia at the moment,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a surprise for China to lean on Russia to
Yeah.
say, can you get rid of this Taiwanese athlete?
Yeah.
Because we don't recognize Chinese Taipei as they
Yeah.
have to they have to compete in the Olympics under. They can't call themselves Taiwan.
Yeah.
Or their real name, the Republic of China, ROC, they can't call themselves that.
Yeah. And it just feels I don't, the fact is that they both train really, really hard. They, running in the mountains and lifting
Yeah.
rocks, all that stuff. You see all the backstories. They're going to get big. They're going to get muscly, and they look like just like all the other boxers.
Yeah.
And yeah, oh, you don't look like a woman. You don't look. You're not wearing a dress, and you haven't got long blonde hair, and you don't look like you're. There's this whole misogyny approach to them,
Yeah.
but they are just boxers, and um, the boxer we're talking about kind of has lost eight or nine fights against other women,
Yeah.
and they're not it's that but they're their birth certificate, as you says female. You can't change your birth certificate, you know in Algeria, because if you could, they'd probably beat you up and murder you, because
Yeah.
they don't like trans or LGBTQI people. So this is just such a
Well,
awful thing.
and the way it was framed as well,
Yeah.
as if it had anything to do with domestic violence. They talked about a man hitting a woman, and you're like, oh my god, 50
Yeah.
women have been murdered so far this year in this country by men,
Yeah.
and to have women competing in the Olympics, and for these
Yeah.
other people, men and women, to be online, powerful, rich people, misgendering them and trying to draw this kind of parallel
Yeah.
between the crimes committed by men against women to
Yeah.
these female boxers in the Olympics. I mean,
Yeah.
this is disgusting from
Yes.
top to bottom, left or right. But I'm going
Yeah.
to report, and this might be wrong because it's from the Daily Mail, so it's not a reputable news site. But get this: Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling could be handed 5-year prison sentences and fined up to £214,000 if
Yeah.
Olympic boxer Imane Khelif wins the criminal cyberbullying case.
Wow, I didn't know. Well, that is the Daily Mail. I mean, legally, I don't think anybody knows because it's been filed in a French court
It has.
against Twitter.
But it's a criminal case, you see. If it was a
Yeah.
civil case, they'll say, go away, you're in Algeria and you're suing people who aren't in France.
Yeah.
But the lawsuit has the lawsuit to the French authorities has alleged acts of aggravated cyber harassment, and these are the potential penalties.
Yeah. And it's a way it's to the look at the careful writing of the act. Hold on again. So they're filing against the platform, but it's the authors. That's what. So so Musk and J.K. Rowling have been listed, but it could be anyone. So it could be any one of those kind of people that have been writing this stuff and attacking her on Twitter. Anybody could be added to this. They were just mentioned, but they really
amongst others, including Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Another lawsuit against the orange one.
Yeah, Libs of TikTok, Riley Gaines, Logan Paul. I don't know some of them, but they are all listed.
Wow.
Blah blah blah. So the French government has agreements with the US. and the UK. If it's defamation that they go for, then the UK, it's easier to prove here than it is in the UK, America. So they've got lots of avenues. It's a very complicated and probably a lengthy and expensive process. But
Yeah.
hey, I think that they're going to go for it, and I hope that the Taiwanese boxer joins the suit
Do you
because
know that this whole thing was so horribly inevitable that
yeah,
one day J.K. Rowling would go too far and she would show her true colours. She's not a feminist.
no,
She is a bitter old lady who has decided that her infinite wealth is not enough to make her happy.
I
And
think
so she's picked a minority to
yeah,
scapegoat all of the world's ills upon. And do you know what? I was thinking about this the other day. Say if you have a daughter or a stepdaughter who suffers from anxiety, and they're only 7, 8 years old, and you want to take them to town, but they don't
yeah,
want to go with you because you're, if in my case, you're their dad or stepdad, and they know that they'll need the toilet
yeah,
at some point if they go to town with you, and they don't want to go in the men's because that would, they don't want to, and you feel like you can't take them into the women's toilets so
yeah,
they can go for a wee. Because, say, for instance, your daughter suffered from anxiety and she needed to be able to see your foot under
yeah,
the bit of the door when the door closes to make sure you were there in order to be able to use the toilet because this is a symptom of their anxiety.
yeah,
Because of people like J.K. Rowling, they're making that little girl either wet themselves or decide not to go
yeah,
into town with their
yeah,
dad or stepdad.
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry, I'm sorry, I shouldn't swear, but like,
Oh, demonetized right there.
I am so frustrated
Yeah,
with the likes of J.K. Rowling because up to this point, they've not been held to account for what they've done, and the knock-on effects of their disgusting transphobia
yeah,
has been sort of brushed under the carpet, and they've tried to make it out like no, I'm just
yeah,
sticking up for women's rights, and I'm
yeah.
like, no, you're
Well, it's
not.
affected a lot of trans people anyway, right across the board. I mean, a lot of trans adults are not going to public bathrooms anymore. They're holding they're dehydrating themselves before they
Yeah,
travel anywhere. And even it affects me. I only use losing when I go to an office that's gender neutral. I don't like going out as much as I did because
yeah.
you always think you're going to meet some troglodyte. It's going to go
And did
in
you have
somehow.
this problem 10 years ago? Did you even
No,
think about
no,
it?
not even up to 2020, really. I mean, when it was really after lockdown when everybody went insane.
Yeah.
I think that's when it all started going crazy. I think people
Nelly
too.
Nelly Olson in the chat is saying we had a girl murdered because of this rhetoric. Yeah,
Yeah,
Brianna
we did.
Jai. She was
Yeah,
murdered by
yep,
transphobes who were
yep.
stirred up by the bullshit on the internet.
And we've had stabbings, and the crime rate against trans people doubled in a year. I mean,
Yeah, and harassment and
yeah,
just general wanton cruelty for
yeah,
no
and
reason other than
yeah. And it
I don't
becomes
know what
when
to
you
say.
start becoming obsessed with trans people, and a lot of these people do, it's ban them off hospital wards, get them out of
Yes.
toilets, take away the children's healthcare, take away the
Yeah.
adults' healthcare, let's take them off women only list for jobs. It's very slowly the trans universe is getting smaller. And they're moving on to gay couples. And it's just we knew it would be trans kids, trans
Yep.
adults, same-sex couples, and then women. You can
Yeah.
see it playing out in fast time in Handmaid's Tale America right
Yeah.
now. And
Well, I
and
know at
so
least one gay guy who's married in America who supports Donald Trump, and I'm like, are you insane? You know what Project 2025 is going to do to you?
but people don't. I mean, this is the ridiculous.
They're going to annul your marriage. They're going to stop you from adopting children or
Yeah,
raising children.
yeah. You won't be allowed to be married
They've put
if
it
you're
out there
gay in
clearly.
America.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
coming. They're coming for your wombs. They want
yeah,
white women to have white babies, and that's it. That's America. They don't want immigration. They want them, and that's what Project 2025 says. It's
yeah,
just all written out. It's like we're writing out all the evil stuff we're going to do. Here it is, and we're so confident about it. We've written it down and put it online for you.
yeah,
And JD Vance has written the foreword to a book about it. It's like, for
yeah.
God's sake.
Well, Alec Barrett, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. I think some of this is so people in Algeria don't give her grief. Pretty hard to
Yeah,
say there is any truth to this now. Yeah, I mean, you can't say there's any truth to it. It is bullshit. And
yeah.
J.K. Rowling, she knows she's been caught out, but she hasn't apologized.
Mm,
That, for me, like straight away, as soon as it
yeah,
came out that she was wrong, She should have just said, "That's it. Okay, look, I've messed up. I apologize. I will, give this money to a women's refuge that allows any women to go to or whatever." But no, she didn't. She didn't. Puninator, £5 super chat. Thank you. I think Rowling can't think of a new story to keep her popularity rolling, and now is just using her hatred to keep her name in the headlines just for attention. That might well be the case.
Well, they're burning her books. I saw in Taiwan. What did they call it? I looked it up. It was the Harry Potter books burn. The Goblet of Fire. They called it the Goblet of Fire in Taiwan. I saw something on social media about it. They were burning their books. They were very upset by those comments at the time. And the thing is that Imane has to do something, because returning to her own country, she's got to do something, because there will all be people in her country who, surprisingly, there are people not very bright in every country who will think that she is a man now, and will look.
Oh, you weren't talking about me. Thank you.
No, I'm talking about. I would never. You're a very clever man. She's got to fight now, because there will be people in her country who will think, well, hang on a minute, maybe there's something to this. There are those conspiracy theorists in every country.
I disagree in general with burning books. I don't think that's very helpful.
No.
But I've got to say that J.K. Rowling has done a very good job of burning her own books.
Yeah.
Prospero, burn your books. She has sullied her reputation almost beyond recognition now, especially for Generation Z coming up, Generation Z, who have had enough of it. They've just absolutely had enough of it, because they have friends who are trans, they have friends who are gay, they understand that everyone deserves dignity and respect, no matter who they are. You should be judged on the acts that you commit, whether you're full of kindness and love or whether you're full of vitriol and hatred. I mean, that's what you should be judged upon, and not who you intrinsically are. And then acting as gatekeepers. So and you get this in the gay community with people who are bisexual, where you'll have a bigger argument. Believe me on this one, you'll have a bigger argument with your gay friends about being bisexual than you ever will with your heterosexual friends. Your heterosexual friends are like, oh yeah, that's fair enough. And then you have your gay friends, not all of them, hashtag not all gay friends, who'll be like, you just haven't made your mind up yet. And you're like, well, no, I like tea and coffee.
Yeah, we are a friendly tribe of people that tend to war over all sorts of things. But, it would be better if we were stronger. That's why there are organizations trying to break tea off LGB, because if you weaken LGBT by taking the T away, LGB will fall. And they know that. That's why they're trying to get LGB people to attack trans people, because if you can get us away from the LGB, they will fall too. And that's the strategy. It's somebody in a think tank in Washington went, this is a great idea. Divide and conquer. The other thing I wanted to raise on that court case is obviously what they said, that the lawyer said, we are going to go after the authors on the platform of X. We're going to leave it to governments to deal with X. And I think that governments are going to deal with X.
The EU.
We're hearing it here. We're hearing it in America. We're hearing it in a lot
of
Europe.
The EU sent a letter, haven't they?
I think that X is going to get its ass kicked. And I'm glad about that, because it's just wrecked now. So I was
just talking to Farouk, he's still on Twitter. He's a brilliant person to follow if you're on Twitter. He's using threads these days. And he was saying that now, when he tries to search for his own tweets by using his handle, words, like trust fail or whatever, nothing's coming up. Like Musk he's actually broken the platform. No, I don't think he does. I don't know if he does have a blue tick.
Well, we saw the big broadcast last night, the echoey broadcast that was,
we'll talk about this in a moment.
Okay, I'm happy to talk about it. It's not intersection related, but
it's to do with Musk, isn't it? And just how crap his platform is. But he, in the same way that Graham Linehan has ruined his legacy. If Loser Fox had the legacy, he would have ruined it, but he hasn't got one to ruin. J.K. Rowling's ruined her legacy, and Elon Musk has ruined his legacy. He will always be known now. If he died tomorrow, or if he lives to another 100 years, it doesn't matter. He'll still always be known as that dickhead who ruined Twitter. And all of his achievements will be forgotten. Not
Yeah, I
that
mean,
they
he
were
was
really
Mr.
his in the first place.
EB, he was the space cowboy, he's the space Karen. He turned into
Space Gavin.
yeah, but he was going to save the planet. It was all going to be,
Yeah,
fight the net, go for net zero, green technologies,
yeah,
let's go to Mars. Woo.
yeah,
And now
yeah.
he's turned into this, super, well, I don't, there are too many expletives, but what happened? Now everybody thinks, well, he's a bit of a plonker, and it's just
Well,
not
with
shown.
him, it's ketamine. I don't know what's happened with XY Rowling. And we should
Yeah.
call her XY Rowling until
Mm.
she or he proves otherwise.
Yeah.
Let's have the same standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was going to say there's some comments that I'd like to go back to that I've
Yeah,
missed.
go for it.
Our Life, My Life says, some bloke the other day told me if I was a true feminist, I would be a transphobe. I was furious. Of course, I welcome trans women. Always have. I've shared bathroom with trans women many times, which is fantastic. We've also got Vortex Lisa saying, I was voted Woman of the Year at a local community group at the weekend. I honestly dread to think what would happen if any of them found out I'm trans. Guess it's lucky I'm not a public figure, and that is heartbreaking,
Yeah.
Lisa. So you've achieved that, amazing accolade, and then there were people who would want to take that away from you now, and I think 10 years ago it wouldn't have even been given a second thought. In fact, I think people would have felt good about themselves for being so inclusive.
We're all proud. It's a journey for everybody. It's the voice. It's the journey of champions, as my wife calls it. And once you get through it, and you make a go of your life, and you have your friends, and you have your job, and it's amazing.
Can I mention today's a special day today?
You can if you want to.
Today's Rachel's wedding anniversary today. So congratulations, Rachel. So
3 years.
Everyone can want to give a congrats in the chat.
So I posted Politics Social this morning. It's our leather anniversary now because I got all the kinky stuff. Actually, I gave my wife a bookmark in leather because
okay, that's nice.
Yeah, and I was like, leather, is it?
So we've got more chat from Alvone saying there's two types of people: those who want to make life kinder and those who are determined to make it more hateful. Yeah. I think there's another type because I just want to have a party. This is just me. Every day I'd wake up and go, I'd like to have a party today, and I want everyone to come and everyone to have a really good time because what makes me happy is seeing loads of people having a really good time. I know that's weird. But then there's people who are only happy when they're making other people miserable. They're making other people cry. They're making other people feel sad. Which isn't
company.
It's not great. Someone made a joke about me being ginger. Thanks for that. Having no friends.
Me or you?
And Alan saying the Trump Musk thing was using Wayne's dodgy internet. Brilliant. And Power to the People says he's fallen into every rabbit hole there is except flat Earth, and he only leaves that one out because of his rockets. Indeed. And and everyone's saying happy anniversary. So you've got a happy anniversary from Alan and Gallifrey and Ren and Michael Warner and Alvone and Nelly Olsen and Sfax. Pete's Music, Alan Barker, Cathal, Wes Wheel, Mike Dix. How you doing, Michael? We've also got number 3 in there and I Like My Life. So yeah, that's really cool.
He'd save a lot of rocket fuel if the world was flat, wouldn't he? Because it would just go on the ground, wouldn't it?
No, he could just get to the edge and jump off.
Yeah, even that.
Yeah, no, push it off the edge. There you go. Wait till the moon is underneath the Earth, right? Yeah. And then you just push the rocket, and it'll just go straight down to the moon.
Yeah,
I don't know how you stop it when it gets to the moon, but maybe the moon's a trampoline. Maybe it's a big round trampoline, and the rocket will just hit the trampoline and bounce.
Yeah, you release the trampoline, and it lands before you do, and then you hit it. Because there's no gravity. Does it go faster? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. Put more weight on it. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, just to mention that bizarre interview on what's it called? Twitter Spaces. It's called.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's called X now. So it should really be SpaceX. So should we call it SpaceX? So this conversation. And all it was an audio conversation. It was just a phone call.
Yeah.
Broadcasting a phone call over the internet, and they didn't have the bandwidth.
Do you see a lot of people were linked off? There's people clicked on a funny link that took them to a different thing where they were sold.
It's a cyber. It was an AI version of the conversation, and it was a cyber scam, which seems very fitting considering Trump, NFTs. Musk, Dogecoin. I mean, they're all
Buy
one
my
leads to the other.
shoes. Buy my shoes.
But yeah,
Oh my God.
um, yeah. Anyway, so yeah,
So that
okay,
was a
so
disaster.
yeah,
Just to finish off on the Olympics. I mean, the thing that was really bad for a lot of trans people was that, you know what, it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world if either of those boxers had been trans,
no,
right? I mean, obviously we're not allowed to box in the Olympics, so but the fact is the worst thing in the world was there could be trans. Oh my God. And it
mm,
was that for the trans community, like, God, do people really hate us that much? The anger and the oh my God, it was vitriolic. And from I tried to put a post out about it at the time, just saying, well, you know what, it's not the worst thing being trans. I love being trans. I love my life. And I can't box, but the fact is that the science is still progressing on that, and we're still waiting on science, and there's not,
yeah,
and but it was just from a trans community point of view, we still got kicked about it, even though it wasn't about trans people.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was just misogyny and hate. So yeah, that's what I took
Cruel
from.
misogyny, and in the same way that when I was growing up, the people that I knew who were so far in the closet they were in Narnia have now turned out to be gay in their
Yeah,
20s,
yeah,
30s, 40s, even, which came as no surprise to us.
yeah,
We've always known, and then we're like, a big shock. I've got something to tell you. When you're like,
yeah,
have you come out the closet? Yeah. How did you know? And I'm like, oh. But it's always
yeah,
the people who are like, not always, but often people who were so transphobic
yeah,
when they were younger. And I
yeah,
think there's something in this. I don't know about Musk. I don't know about Graham Linehan.
yeah,
I think maybe they kind of like they find themselves attracted to trans people, and
yeah,
maybe that's it. I don't know. But with J.K. Rowling in particular, now when she wrote her it was in 2020, I think. During lockdown, she wrote this big thing about why she was the way she was about trans people. She tried
right,
to
yeah,
justify it, saying that she
mm,
was a victim of domestic violence,
yeah,
and that it's understandable. You're a victim of domestic
yeah,
violence. She's obviously got some internalized trauma,
yeah,
but to take it out on trans people when the guy who did that to her was cis
yeah,
doesn't make much sense to me. In the
no,
same way that if she decided that all men were evil,
mm,
all cis men were evil, I'd be like, well, that okay, you're
yeah,
entitled to believe that, considering what you've gone through. That would
yeah,
that would make more sense to me. But she
yeah,
decided to go out to trans people, and I think it might be to do with something that she said.
mm,
If she when she was younger and more impressionable, she might have been trans herself. And
mm,
when I look at her writings, she was under the name J.K. Rowling, a gender neutral name, because she said that women can't, didn't get anywhere in children's writing, which came as a huge surprise to Beatrix Potter and Enid Blyton, amongst others. Um, and and then you've got you've got her pen name for her other books, her detective books, which is
yeah,
Robert
Robert,
Galbraith.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Why has she picked a man's name? What, can women not write detective books? I mean,
mm,
that seems really really bizarre to me that she is so anti-trans and yet she does things that would make you think that
yeah.
she might be on a trans journey herself.
It's really hard to know the motivations. I mean, the fact is, being abused by a guy in a relationship is very traumatic, but that hasn't to do anything with trans women. We are abused and attacked and raped just like
Yeah,
non-trans women. And I think that either you just don't believe trans women are women, in which case you see us as men, in which case you don't want us in your spaces, and that is it. And that depends a lot of your education and who you came into contact with first. If you'd met lots of lovely trans people first, you may
mm,
have been a bit more supportive. If you meet other people that are not so great, I don't know. There's a lot about education and experience and hanging out with trans people. A lot of people in my life are extremely positive because they know me and they know how I live my life with my wife who's trans, and it doesn't bother them at all because we're human. They
yeah,
see the human side of our relationship and our friendship. So
yeah,
I don't know, I think life experience has a lot to do with it as well. I think the fact is that what happens with transphobes though is they do start, it starts off with especially people who come to it half educated, they start down that, they become obsessed. The trans investigators that you see online and stuff, they
Transvestigators.
become obsessed, and it
Yeah.
just become, they hang into an echo chamber. It's like right wingers going
Well,
further and further to the right because of the algorithm
yeah.
on social media. Um, it starts off with toilets, then it starts with sport, then it starts with just exist. That's the fact that we exist. It will become obsessive, and
Yeah.
Graham Linehan and all those people. They become, it's the sole focus of their life to the expense of everything else in it, and that's the ultimate destination of quite a lot. It just
Yeah.
becomes the hate eats them up, and I don't know
You're
why.
absolutely
Trans
right.
people
You're
are,
absolutely right.
we're a comparatively small community. We're just trying to live our lives, and it's bloody
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Without all this on top of us as well, which just
Yeah.
shows how robust we all are, because we're still here
Yeah.
fighting this rubbish every day.
But it's one of those things of like the other thing, isn't it? To say
Yeah,
no, they're not like us. They don't have the
yeah,
same emotions as us. They don't, and that attitude feeds into. And this is when we get back to intersectionality. It feeds into
yeah,
racism. It feeds into
yeah,
misogyny, homophobia, all this kind of stuff. Looking at a group of people and saying, "Oh, they're all like this."
yeah,
And one of the things that the transphobes do is they'll pick a crime that has been committed by a trans person
yeah.
and they'll make that all trans
Oh,
women are like this.
yeah.
And
So
if you did that for black people,
yeah,
that would be incredibly
it would.
racist, and
So
no one would even think otherwise. They'll just be like, "Oh my god, how racist are you?" Just because
every
one black
time,
person commits a crime doesn't mean they all do.
that's true. Every time there's a crime committed, that shooter at Trump, all I thought was, I hope they're not trans.
Yeah,
The stabbing in London a couple of days ago, I hope they're not trans, because the entire worldwide trans
yeah,
community will be tarred. Look what happened in Scotland with self ID. One trans prisoner in a women's
yeah,
prison had done a bad thing, was never in general pop, was always
yeah,
isolated. It's
yeah,
always a case by case basis,
yeah,
but we were judged that whole of the self ID in Scotland was sabotaged by that one thing. They went into all
yeah,
the papers. Oh, they're in, trans people. Look at self ID. The men will declare themselves as women and go into women's spaces because, yeah, that's the toilet sign that stops us. That it's
yeah,
hard always by the action of one of us,
yeah,
and that is, that's a gift to them, because we
yeah.
can never do anything. And I've seen figures going into parliament where they have hyped up the crime rate to trans people as opposed to non-trans people, and they're fake, but they look very real. And if you know what you're looking for, you can see the hyped crime figures, and it's not,
Well,
it's
it's funny. You know who got transvestigated this week or last week actually?
oh yeah, I do. Go on, remind me.
Andrew Taint.
That's right. Oh
After being told that he's not white by racists rioting in the UK because he's not white enough, apparently there was a picture that went out of him,
yeah,
of him, where he didn't seem to have a penis
yeah.
or testicles.
So he'd be an
He would
excellent
definitely
poll
not hit.
voter.
Yeah, he would not. He would not hit the high bar on the pole vault. He would not. He would not hit it.
Yeah.
God, that guy's never going to be short of pickup lines, is he? So
No.
you're a French pole vaulter. Was that you?
Was that you? Hello.
Would you like to go for coffee, sir? Anyway, yeah. But so isn't it funny? Like the leopards will end up eating your own
Yeah, I mean
face, won't they?
they always end up, that's the trouble with the ego on all lots of groups on the hard right, always end up eating each other. And
Yeah, yeah,
and they're all turning, they're turning against, in America, they're turning against Trump right now because of the terrible broadcast he did on Twitter. So they're all going,
yeah,
oh God. So I don't know, that's always hope for me in it, because they never get on. They always end up
yeah.
attacking each other. So do you want to go on to Vivian?
In a moment, we'll
Yeah.
come on to Vivian. I'm continuing the Musk conversation. Jesus, the
Yeah.
Muskrat conversation. But
Yeah.
first of all, I just wanted to go back to Blue Badger. It's 10 minutes behind, so we'll get this for another 10 minutes. Says, when my daughters need the loo and they're out with me, as their dad, we use the disabled, and it's often doubled up with children's change. No one's ever questioned it. Yeah, but if you're a stepdad, it might not be appropriate for you to go into the room with your stepdaughter. Do you see what I mean? So... yeah, it's not always, and I say not always that simple. There's not always a disabled toilet.
No.
Punninator, thank you very much for the super chat. It's not like we have public toilets anymore. Thank you very much for the super chat. I'm not trans, but I am ace. I remembered asexual. I remembered my dad saying I just hadn't found the right girl yet and dismissed me. I hated being treated like that, and because of it, I will always be an ally of other minorities. Thanks very much for the super chat there, Pollinator, and you make a really good point.
Yeah.
I find it like I never get asked. Okay, I'm 45. I don't have kids of my own. I never get asked, oh, when are you going to have kids? Oh, but women, they do all the time. And it's really inappropriate to ask women if they're going to have kids because they might not be able to. It might be really upsetting that they might not be able to. They might have had a series of miscarriages that you don't know about. And there's so many situations in life that I wish we were taught this in school. You know, the only thing I learned when I was growing up in the 1980s was if you fancy someone, right, just pester them, and then they'll eventually go out with you at the end of the movie. Just be an absolute dick and pester them.
That's Bridget Jones, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. Yes.
TikTok, Bridget.
Yeah. But it's not helpful that people. I don't know. We talk about critical thinking being taught in school, and I think that's a good idea. But also, I think just being like, what to say, what not to say. You know, social skills. Let's teach social skills in schools, so we don't. I've probably messed up in the past.
Well, Uncle Phil believes that, doesn't he? He was talking about we do need to teach critical thinking. God, we need it, and empathy, but you need to give the teachers the time to teach it. So that's the other thing. So it's really important that they have. So Vivian.
So this is the daughter of Elon Musk, who has just gone on the warpath against her estranged father.
Yeah. So Vivian's worth a follow on Threads.
She's brilliant.
I'm not on any social media, so I don't see the output. So I have to read about it in inclusive media. But the biography called Elon Musk, which was described by The Guardian, I wrote this down, is a dull, insight-free doorstop by Gary Shataynak-Gart at The Guardian. That was, anyway, basically the book really made Vivian, I mean, I think they mispronounced her. Misnamed her.
Dad named her.
The person who wrote the book is actually, written some other biographies that have been quite acclaimed, but this was not great. She only found out about the book about a month before the publication. She wasn't interviewed for it. The author said that he had reached out to her family, but not to her. It was, really upset. I mean, she's had to go on a pretty detailed, and I would recommend going looking at the thread because I couldn't do it justice. But she talks about every step of what it was like to be Elon's child, how she was brought up, even the whole thing. There was a really good tweet about Musk accusing her of having kind of the woke mind virus when he was being interviewed by Jordan Peterson as well. And there were two great threads, and I recommend, and Hughes has a good coverage of this as well. It's just, a whole load of discussions, lots of cisgendered people talking about it, writing about it, and completely excluding the trans person from the conversation. Who knew? And she has quite rightly exploded about it and has got a lot of media
She's very funny. She's very articulate.
Brilliant.
She's well worth follow. I put the link in the chat there. It's Vivlanius. And her name is as Vivian Jenna Wilson. Really, really worth a follow on Threads. If you're on Threads, if you've joined the great exodus away from X, which is becoming much more unusable as the days go by, as Trump found on Monday night. And Darian, to start, thank you so much for the £20 super chat. You are amazing. Darian, you are amazing. Thank you very much. But I mean, being the daughter of one of the richest men in the world and having that person go after you in a very, very public way and belittle your achievements, lie about your growing up. He made out that when she was little that she was clearly gay and she knew what clothes she wanted to wear when she was 4. And she's like, no, I was 4. What are you even talking about?
Yeah, some of
And
the words that he attributed to her saying you wouldn't know as a 4-year-old, right? So it was like,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. And
So,
Breitbart have done a hit piece on her, amazingly. She's been putting out the drag pictures of JD Vance. There's a couple of pictures of JD Vance wearing a blonde wig,
oh
which
yeah,
explains
brilliant.
everything why Trump likes him.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then there's
JD
she
Vance.
yeah, and she's also posted about Algeria taking no shit. Although
Yeah.
that's not the country of Algeria. It's just a web. It's just a
Yeah.
post.
Yeah.
Algeria FC, which is also worth a follow.
Yeah.
Gallifreyan Ven says, I admire Vivian's strength. When I came out, all I got from my dad was something on the lines of, it was never going to be good news. I wasn't publicly accused of an imaginary virus. Yeah.
Mhm.
And David is in Torremolinos. Well, I hope you're having a good time, David. I'm in sunny Durham. That's why I'm wearing my hoodie. Is it warm where you are down south?
It's boiling in here. I'm
Is
sitting in
it?
this. I'm in a t-shirt. I'm hot.
How are you? I've got my bloody
Yeah, it's
hoodie
been
on. It's
25
gonna put me.
degrees here.
It's gonna put me coat on. And Vendetta says, "Is Vivian the one who was given the uber stupid name times 10 to the power of 2 or something?" No, no.
Mm.
She wasn't. This before
Yeah.
Musk went absolutely batshit insane and decided to start calling everything X.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's a friendly symbol, X, isn't it? Just saying.
yeah. It doesn't sound like a porn site at all, does it? X.com.
Yeah. So let's talk about Vance since
Yes.
you
This is
know,
great. This was segueing from one
yeah,
topic to the
didn't we?
next
So
effortlessly.
obviously, I mean, we've got 5 or 6 light things to go through in the last 20 minutes. So Vance is one because obviously he's taken a very anti-LGBTQI
Yes.
stance. Now he's now vice sort of going standing as vice president for the Republicans. So he obviously changed his stance. We all know that he didn't like Trump. We all know that he called him Trump Hitler and all the other stuff. But Peter Thiel backs him, and he wrote that book and everything. And his beginnings, unlike Tim Walz, who is a real red belt kind of rust belt rather. Vance seems to have had quite a nice conveyor belt in what is a very transactional, money. I pay for education, books, all that kind of stuff for if you do something for me, kind of it is on the right. It's all kind of transactional. And the reason
Yeah.
I know it's that is because there's a really great interview, which I recommend with Sophia Nelson. It was on the Don Lemon show. It was last couple of days. Go and watch it. It's amazing. And this is a trans person using he, she pronouns, went to law school with Vance and will tell you how woke he was, using their, but he was very inclusive. He was very LGBT, sent her a bread basket when they transitioned, always been pals, but obviously then decided, I'm not getting where I want to be on this side of the fence. I'm going to go and play on the other side. And has changed his views on everything. And even when he started posting some pretty nasty stuff and saying the things he did, Sophia emailed him and said, "What are you doing?" And he went, "Oh, you've been infected." But the wording, you have to go and look at the video, but it was something like, "You've been infected by the Jeff Bezos woke mind virus," or something like that. Yeah, Jeff Bezos. Yes,
What?
Jeff Bezos.
Lex
No.
Luthor himself? No. Just
So,
what?
but
Sorry, they were saying that Jeff Bezos is woke. Have I missed something?
I don't know. Doesn't his rockets look like willies? I don't know.
Oh my god!
The fact is,
Oh my god!
but that he was on that he was inclusive because he was wearing drag quite confidently. There's lots of drag photographs of JD Vance. You've got to be quite confident to put on drag and hang out and be really socially including friends to do that. And so anyway, the Don Lemon show interview with Sophia is one of the most powerful things. I watched it at 1 o'clock this morning, because I'm preparing for my intersection, but I wanted to watch it. And it was great. I mean, it was a really powerful, and the how proud they were of their, they came from a pretty difficult background. They got their scholarship. They went to university. They were in a very privileged university. The reason that they and Vance became friends is because they both came from pretty humble backgrounds at a very wealthy law school. And that's why they became very close friends. And the portrayal was really hard for them. To Vance is she kind of says, he's just playing at this. He's doing this because there's money, there's power, there's privilege by playing this game.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful interview. And I do recommend that you go and watch it if you
Okay,
get.
I'm just put the link into the chat there
Well done.
to the Don Lemon's
Right. And
YouTube.
then
Please watch after this,
yeah.
not instead of.
And then I want to talk about so that was one thing. That's JD Vance dragging up.
JD
That's
Vance.
obviously Trump's probably not liking that. Paralympics coming up in Paris. Thanks to Benjamin on the Discord. See, I'm down with the kids. Discord. See, there you go. You think I'm old, but time traveler and all that. So Benjamin mentioned Valentine Petrillo, who's a trans woman taking part in the Paralympics. Now, just to let you know, recognized, transition, birth certificate, all done, everything recognized by the World Paralympics Association, recognized by the Italian Paralympic Federation, recognized by the Italian Paralympic Committee, recognized by the Olympic Committee as being okay as a trans woman to take part in the 200 meters, 400 meters races. But the media's bubbling up for another fight. So keep an eye on that.
They're not going to learn, are they? So it's Valentina Petrillo.
That's
and,
right.
she's the first openly transgender athlete.
But the Paralympics works on a different way, in a way, than the non-Paralympics, in that they look at your ability, your height, your weight, what your disability is. So they look at you in a number of different ways. And they classify you and put you in the correct, the categories where it's going to be competitive and fair, right? So, but they'll still find a way that making the trans is a competitive somehow. So I'm expecting the usual stuff to come out, but I hope Valentina does really well and annoys all of them again, and does. So I'll be rooting.
Well, I mean, Human Fish, Sharon Davis wrote, yet another male excluding females from their own category. There is no inclusion for women in woke sports rules, just unfairness, increased danger in a combat sport, and disrespect for the whole point of categories.
Running's a combat sport. Okay.
I mean, she's 40, she's 50. She's 50 years old.
Yeah.
I mean,
the science, and even they said follow the science. The fact is, okay, there is the evidence. I mean, there are sports, as you know, chess, darts, snooker, that they want to ban. This is not about.
They've done it in chess.
They created a female category so they could ban trans women from it.
Well, and in the Olympics, shooting used to be mixed gender, and then because the women kept winning it all, they decided to split it up into men and women, so the men could have a gong.
Yeah, it is. It's about exclusion, not fairness. There, Canada tries to include their trans people in the sport. They do an assessment each time. There are leagues in rugby in Ireland. They banned the 2 trans women playing, and the whole league, every woman wanted the trans players to play, and they still did it. This is about. But the science is changing. You might have developed with testosterone when you were younger, but when you're on estrogen, that is quite debilitating in some ways as well. And that's what they've got to measure, follow the science. Well, you grew under testosterone, but what's estrogen doing to your body, and how does it affect your concentration? And so there's a lot of science to be done. And that's what I really like about this Italian sportswoman, is that she's saying, look, we've got to follow the science. And lots of trans people will tell you, if the science says we do have a competitive advantage, we wouldn't play. But the science isn't there yet. But the attacks are full on, and it's about exclusion. It's not about fairness anyway, as I say repeatedly.
I wanted to mention, when you were talking about JD Vance just before, Darian De Stars mentioned this in the chat here. JD Vance changed his views when he became the plaything of billionaire Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel's gay, isn't he?
Yep.
So why is he supporting Project 25? Oh, I know why. Because he knows it won't affect him. Say it with me, everyone. It won't affect the rich.
But all those silicon, I can't remember. They all follow some philosopher who's basically Yeah, who basically says,
And Milton Friedman, the
yeah,
economist,
democracies are all over.
who I
It needs
think
to be
won
also,
the bullshit,
yeah, they're all
the
convinced
Nobel
that,
Prize. There's one Nobel Prize that was
yeah,
not invented by Mr. Nobel.
yeah,
It was invented in the 1960s by a bank, and it was the Nobel Prize for Economics, which isn't a science. It's bullshit. You may as well have an economic prize. Sorry, a Nobel Prize for gambling on the bloody
yeah,
GGs. Unbelievable. But a bank came along to the Nobel Committee and said, "We will literally give you millions and millions of dollars or
yeah.
Swedish krona if you include a new category called the Nobel Prize for Economics." And so they did, and it allowed people like Milton Friedman and the Chicago School of Economics, who are disaster capitalists, to rule the roost over economies all over the world. And there's a great book by Naomi Klein called, oh God, it's about disaster capitalism. Someone's going to remind me in the chat now.
Yeah.
I just thought of No Logo, which is her first book. This was the second book.
But it is the, I mean, for me, it always comes down to tax breaks. Which government's going to give me the tax breaks and allow me to deunionize my workers, get the tax breaks? The attacks on Black people, trans people is just othering to get, to dissuade what they're up to. And I think the fact is that, now we're seeing the point that the planet warming up, the billionaires building their bunkers.
Shock doctrine. That's what it's called. Shock doctrine.
The billionaires are building their bunkers. I hear that, Zuckerberg's got one in.
Oh God,
Hawaii.
Nobel Prize. Sorry, Nobel Prize is a Norwegian krona. Sorry, I said Swedish. I said Swedish, didn't I? Oh, I'm gonna have to get my head down for the rest of the night now.
But I'm
so embarrassed.
That's all right.
You don't understand, Rachel. For now, I must walk into the sea forever. Farewell. I want to go back in time. Can I borrow your time machine so I can go back in time a couple of minutes and give myself a slap?
Yeah, I will lend it to you, but it takes a lot of power. So these billionaires trying to overthrow democracy just for more lower tax breaks, while ruining the planet and building their bunkers. That's the kind of thing. I know I talk about the plot of Stark by Ben Elton in the 90s. Yep. Is what's happening now. Read Stark and then look at where we are and think, wow.
And the main guy in Stark was a heroin addict, wasn't he? The posh guy. He's like, it's perfectly acceptable if one is using heroin, under proper circumstances. It's just when the hoi polloi get hold of it, they cut it up with those kinds of nonsense. Which is quite similar to the person who owns Twitter being a little bit off his head on ketamine. Special K. Horse tranquilizers. Yeah. Horse tranquilizers for the soul. Yeah. I was also going to mention, I wrote it down. Hang on. Gary Stevenson was talking about, when you talk about taxation, he made a very, very good point about when we talk about taxing the rich, people think that you want to tax people who are earning a wage. And if you tax them, they will go and earn that wage somewhere else. So if they're a banker, an investment, whatever, economist, they will take their trade from London and they will move to Dubai or Singapore, somewhere with no tax or low tax, right? And he says, no, don't tax them anymore. Just tax them a normal amount. Tax the people with inherited wealth, because their wealth is in this country. They own property. Yeah, they own commodities. They own companies that operate in this country.
Yeah,
they can leave personally. They can go and live anywhere in the world, but their stuff is going to be here. So if we tax their stuff, what are you going to do? I thought it was such a great point.
Yeah,
wealth tax
stuff, capital gains. That's why they were saying, bring that up as well when they move it around.
Yes.
So we've got a few more things to get through in the last 5 minutes.
Okay, but before we sorry, we just got a super chat from Richard. Thank you very much, number 3, for the £5 super chat. There are software models of economic systems which may help make the voodoo more enlightened. They aren't publicized much, however. Indeed. Okay, Rachel, go.
Right, so we've got 5 minutes. We've got a few things to get through. What do you want to talk about in the last 5 minutes? We've got
Bishop.
We're back to neighbours again.
Dragarth says I'm not allowed to Harold Bishop my way out of this.
We can talk about CAS, the NHSD transition, or the court equal treatment bench update. I think I can cover all three really quickly.
Okay, go
on. So the court's equal treatment bench update. Now this came out. I listened to What the Trans podcast, which I do recommend you listen to. if you're interested. They cover everything that's happening. It's a bit of good and a bit of upsetting. So be strong. They are great. I'm one of the little patrons, and a lot of people are. So go and be a patron. They do very long podcasts. They're 2 hours long, but they come out every other week or so. So break it up and listen to it whenever you're. And they cover the news stories. And one of the things they covered this week was the Equal Treatment Bench Book, which is the book that judges follow on how to treat people from different diverse backgrounds in court. And I think it was updated a few years ago by another trans organization. It was pretty inclusive. Now, what for the untrained eye, and listen to the podcast on this, it looks like somebody that's not the most trans person has altered it a bit. And it was obviously under the last government, so we're hoping it will get revised. Certainly, a number of my trans activist friends have written to a few legal people to say, what are you going to do about the equal treatment book? But it's things like cisgender is a contentious word, so be careful in court. It's not a contentious word. It's a contentious word because people on the right said it is. There are some terms in there about, sign, sex of birth and things like that. All the things that we need, gender identity, things that are trans terms that we need to define who we are. It's all been a little bit tweaked in a way that makes it, if I don't think the judges would notice it. I don't think that if you're not trans, you would notice that the changes are significant. But trans people that from the community have read it and went, oh my God, who's been at this? So the equal treatment book is quite important for how we're treated in the court. I'm hoping that some barristers and members of the legal profession, certainly there's a few letters gone out to the members of the profession recently to say, you need to do something about this book. So that was one thing. In Scotland, the rule, yes, I think you saw Katie Montgomery, who's a good person to follow on Twitter.
We've had her on the show. We've had her on Politics Social before, Katie.
Tweeted about this 2 days ago. In England, you have to be referred to a gender identity clinic via a GP or get mental health diagnosis. But in Scotland, you didn't. You could self-refer. Well, from the 12th, that's changed. They're now following the English system, which is a bit of a shame. And getting a mental health service to part in, because what I find upset about the mental health diagnosis from the mental health services instead of GP is that in 2019 the World Health Organization declassified being trans as a mental health condition. You know who you are, right?
Yeah.
So
well, it's the same with like being gay used to be a mental health
issue. So exactly that, and it was the same organization that declassified mental health being gay as being a mental health condition. So it's a bit, it's one of those little, as I said, you always see the walls closing in a little bit everywhere around for us. So
I don't know if we mentioned this on the show, but I was talking a while ago about in the 90s we had the Care in the Community Act, which led to a lot of people who had been, that was under Major, I think it was Major.
Oh, was it?
Well, it may started under Thatcher, but it was. And what happened was a lot of these mental health hospitals, which were literally like lunatic treated like lunatic asylums of a bygone era. The people in there, the services had to go in and find out who they could go and live with in society, in the community, to find family and things like that. And they went in and found a disturbing number of women who had been in these hospitals since the 1940s and 50s. So you're talking 30, 40 years, because they were deemed to be mentally unwell because they'd had a child out of wedlock. And that was in the early 90s. There were still people being locked away. I mean, obviously, it didn't happen in the 90s, but there were still people in the hospitals in the 90s being sedated, being given drugs to keep them calm and everything. And the mental issue was in 1947, they had the child out of wedlock. And that to me is just like, the more that we know about the human brain and the way that we are, and it's like, in the same way that I'm not particularly happy with ADHD standing for disorder, or OCD standing for disorder. D stands for disorder, and it's like, well, no, it's just different. It's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It's just you're not.
I'm dyslexic. It's a superpower. For me.
Yeah, well, being ADHD is a superpower for me. I mean, there's not many people out there who could do what I've done in my life, and I think ADHD is a reason why I could do it. If anyone else wants to try, good luck with it. Damien, Good luck going to, because I went to 133 countries in 1 year. The first year of my travels, 133 countries. And I look back on that now and I think that was easy. I think if I did it again, I could do more. Because I wasted time faffing around going to all these stupid little islands when I could have just stayed on the mainland and just gone to
Yeah.
more countries. I reckon I could do at least 160 in a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm amazed that I did that 15 years ago. And yet no one has even come close to topping that, because I'm like, come on, it's not that hard. But then I realised that not everyone can do that. Damien Pritchard, sorry, just 1 sec, because we had a super chat come in from Damien. Thank you very much, Damien. That's very kind of you. My daughter played American football at uni and it's mixed gender team. She kicked ass. When you put pads and helmet on, no one knew, so no one complained.
Perfect.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And go on.
So just a couple of quick ones. So the other thing, part of the cash review was setting up an NHS detransitioning service. So again, covered by What the Trans really, really well. Detransition, big part of our journey. I detransition and then retransition. There are lots of reasons: money, family, prejudice. You may not be trans. You may have got somewhere in your, it's quite an exploratory journey sometimes, but it's quite low in America and at the UK. The figures are incredibly low on detransition. But Cass said there should be a service in the NHS set up. There was a Telegraph article about that being set up. A lot of the community are a little worried about, like, let's say you're going through transition in the NHS and you pause, which is a natural step sometimes, and would you be suddenly whisked over to the detransition service? Or what happens when you're going through detransition, you decide to retransition, which again, ebb and flow, and they go, no, you put back to the queue, right to the beginning of the transition, 5-year waiting list, 10-year waiting list. So there's a lot of worry about, well, because the NHS isn't particularly happy clappy trans at the moment. So what does the detransition, how is that going to be fit? What are the safeguards? So there's some concern that a lot of trans organizations will be watching on that. The other thing I wanted to mention quickly before we go is the
just before you mention the cash report. Got to consider as well, they're going to talk about mental health. The mental health of people who are waiting 5-10 years to get the gender affirming care that they need.
Well, you know that the sort of suicide warning, the young people that had died by suicide, there was a recent, again, on the What the Trans podcast, they covered this because there was a report out that said actually trans kids hadn't died by suicide in the care of the service. But what I understand, and it's probably worth listening to people cleverer than me on the What the Trans podcast, but they basically said they'd include all the people waiting in the queues, the long waiting lists, right? Who are being delayed. They're incredibly lengthy times for their first appointments. So that I don't think, it doesn't feel like some of this stuff is being done very honestly on the statistical. It's a lot of picking and mixing, which brings me on to Cass. Rather neatly. So this was really funny. I was listening to the World Service at 3:00 in the morning. I'm a great sleeper, and they are announcing on the news that the Cass report, they're opening 6 gender identity clinics as per class for young people, right? Because the Tavistock, or even the trans community, didn't really like the Tavistock clinic for young trans people. So they're opening 6, and that's what kind of Cass recommended. The NHS have opened them. Obviously the outcome of being trans is the outcome that nobody seems to want in the NHS, but that's obviously a good outcome for a lot of us. But the 6 clinics are opening. So you sort of, the anti-trans movement were like, okay, well, that's what Cass says, this is fine. But also the NHS is going to run a puberty blocker trial, because Cass said, well, there's not enough evidence. Maybe we should run one, right? So it's in there. So they're going to run one. Oh, my God. The kickoff from the anti-trans brigade. Oh, my God, you're going to run it. But Cass said, you need to do a trial, right? So
no, we only want to follow the bits of the Cass report that, make it difficult to be trans. We don't want to follow anything that might make things better for trans people.
Well, the impression you get from the report is that being trans is the bad outcome. And it's all everything but being trans. That's how it feels, right? So the other thing that's interesting, because now it's subject to peer review, and obviously you're hearing lots of podcasts, lots of scientists, a lot of people talking about it on YouTube now. But the British Medical Association have decided to undertake a review of the Cass review. So that is interesting. And they basically, what I read it from the minutes. It says members of the BMA's council recently voted in favor of a motion which asked the association to publicly critique the cash review. The BMA is calling for a pause on the implementation of the cash review's recommendations. It's expected to be completed by the end of the year. The BMI has been critical of the proposals to ban prescribing of puberty blockers with gender dysphoria, calling for the care to continue. So that's a pretty major.
Yep.
190,000 doctors in the BMA, and they have said we need to take a look at this.
Well, there's been a letter, hasn't there, signed by 1,000 doctors or health professionals, not all doctors, not all members of the BMA either. I think they're going to get 500 members of the BMA to say that they didn't want the BMA to take this stance.
Yeah. So 190,000 v 500.
Yeah, I think they're in the vanishing minority.
Yeah.
And, if we learned anything from the Brexit wars is that if you have a petition signed by 6 million people, it can be safely ignored because yes. 6 million is less than, 70 million of the population.
I discovered yet another YouTuber today. I am doing the research for my socialite.
You are?
I did. Yeah, Rebecca
I love this.
Watson.
You're just sitting there watching videos on YouTube and you're learning stuff. I watch videos on YouTube just to reaffirm a prejudice against films that I already hate.
Just keeping up with all the videos you lot put out on the Politics Social, it's hard enough. My wife is like, "You're not watching Graham again. Get a room."
Get him off the telly.
So Rebecca Watson, American. I really like another country looking in at us. Cisgender woman, writes about lots of other inclusive stuff in general, but covers trans stuff really well. And she did something on the effect, first of all, about the sports stuff, about the effect of cisgender women. She said it was always going to end up with cisgender women being judged because by anti-trans people. And she predicted that, and she talks about that quite well. But she also did a couple of good ones on Cass. She wasn't going to do it, but she's decided. She said, "I'm not going to do this because I'll get the pile on. I always get on." But she did. She pulled it apart, and she talked about the science and where it was all going, and it was really good. And that was up to before the BMA's review. And I watched that yesterday. And I thought,
so what's that channel name? Do you know?
Rebecca Watson. Her name is. I hope you can find it. You'll see that. I'll
try and put it into the chat.
When you find the links to her channel. Yeah. Some great stuff in there. And you know what? In the chat they accuse her of being trans, of course. So it's just like you can make it up, but they do. So
she's done a video called "The Transphobes Are Coming for All of Us," which is seems
it. I really liked her style. She's well researched, and it was just a nice style. I mean, I'm always looking for really good people to view and watch, and those are the ones I came across today, and so and last night. So I just fab.
All right, well, we better leave it there because we're a few moments.
We're over.
I want to say a huge thank you to Rachel for doing this, doing the intersection. You should be interviewing me, but I don't really have anything to add.
No, I mean, it's good. Sorry, Billy, I didn't do my Keir impression.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear, no Keir. Maybe next week. Maybe on Friday.
Maybe on Friday.
Will you be about on Friday?
I hope so.
Do you want to be in charge on Friday?
No, I don't want to be in charge. Why aren't you doing it?
No. Because a friend of mine got married in Canada. He's a Canadian Mountie, and his family from Liverpool, and he's having a party for his wedding on Friday. But it's literally 5 minutes down the road from my mum's house, so I'm thinking I'll start the show and I'll go to the party, and I'll come back in a couple of hours. See how you all get on.
Live stream the party. Oh, I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay.
That'd be brilliant. We could be all Canadianist. Yeah, we don't want to be Canadians. We love the Canadians.
We do love the Canadians. I go to Toronto a lot. I've got a lot of family in Toronto. Yeah, it's lovely. It's a really inclusive.
You can just go to a tree and you can just get a little metal straw and go tap tap tap, and maple syrup comes out the tree. Yeah, it's amazing. Like, how does that?
Toronto's great. You can go out for dinner with sort of 20 nationalities, mixture of sexualities and gender identities, and nobody flinches an eye.
That's the future we all want. That's the future the Liberals want, Rachel. That's the future. Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It sounds good to me. Okay, well, thanks, Rachel, and thank you to everyone
Thank
in
you,
the chat.
socialites.
Thank you for keeping everything really nice and civil to all the socialites out there. Thank you very much for the super chats. Phil will be back at 9:30 tomorrow morning, Uncle Phil, with Morning Brew, so please check that out. Give us a like on the way out, and until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.